Hey everybody, I thought I would do a video. I've been thinking about the upcoming holidays and I thought of 4th of July, so I was trying to think of something to do that was patriotic for 4th of July, and I've been doing a lot of granny squares lately, so I thought I'd try to do something that was square, but not necessarily in the traditional granny square motif. So I decided to do this square, and you could use this for a coaster, or you could use this for the beginning of a scarf, and you could do scarves or a blanket, or you could do lots of different things with squares. You can make a bag. Consider the type of yarn you're using. I used acrylic yarn, but if you're going to make something like a carry bag, you may want to use cotton, or if you're going to use it for a hot pad, of course cotton is the way to go because acrylic will melt. I just like acrylic because of the vibrant colors and the vast color selection. So that's why I like to use a lot of acrylic. So for this project, you'll need, of course, your 3 colors, red, white, and blue, a pair of scissors, your hook. The hook that I used is a 5mm or an H. And then I liked the locking stitch marker and the regular stitch marker. You will also need a darning needle, which I don't have handy, but you'll need a needle as well. So with the 5mm hook, my square came out to 5.5 inches, give or take. And this way about 5 inches. And I believe the reason why it's not a perfect square is because I started it off as the blue rectangle, which set it off as not being a square. But it doesn't look too bad. It looks pretty, it's only a 1/2 inch off, so it looks pretty good. So go ahead and gather your supplies and we'll meet back, and we'll start off with the blue. And so you'll need that and your hook. So we'll go ahead and we'll start round 1. Okay, so hopefully you have all of your supplies together. So we're going to go ahead and start with the blue. We're going to make that blue rectangle. And so we're going to start by chaining 11. And then you're going to put 10 single crochets along that foundation chain. And so remember, you start in the 2nd chain from the hook. That's why we chained 11, so that we can create 10 single crochets. So in the sample that I showed you at the beginning, I did 7 rows. So what you're going to do is just do 10 single crochets, and if you're new to crocheting, I recommend that you count every row to make sure that you have 10, because sometimes those corner stitches or the first stitches, sometimes it's hard to see. So at the end of every row, well, my yarn just split, so let me just do that last one over again. Okay, you're going to chain 1 and turn your work. Okay, and so you will make 7 rows of 10 stitches, so you'll get a nice rectangle, and then you can go ahead and fasten that off, and I will meet you at the end of the 7 rows so that we can start the white. So go ahead and pause your video and we'll be back in just a moment. Alright, so I just finished my rectangle, 7 rows, and I just like to kind of shape it a little bit. Sometimes it gets a little wonky when you're crocheting. So I have my ending tail, and this is where I started. So just so that I can keep it straight, I like to put a little locking stitch marker in this top corner so that I know, 1, that this is the right side, and 2, I'm going to be working my rows this way because this is how this square is mimicking, so that I know that these 2 sides are going to be done last at the border. So I'm going to be working opposite of my stitch marker because that's my top left corner. So now we're going to start our rows, and so you're going to need white, and we're going to turn our square upside down, if, or not square, I'm sorry, rectangle, if you marked your corner here. So we're actually going to be working on the foundation chain, and I'm going to crochet over my tail as I'm going through. So hopefully that's not a new concept to you. This way I don't have to sew in the tails. I just don't like to sew in tails. So you're going to need a length of a tail. So judge however long you need for sewing it in later. And you're going to attach this with, sorry, I'm all fingers here. You're going to attach it with a slip stitch, and then I just go right in the same stitch and make a single crochet. And that, just tighten it up and locks it in there. Okay, so now if you remember, we did, I did 10 stitches across. So there will be 10 stitches for us to go through, but the 10th stitch is the corner. So right now I just want you to do the first 9. So I've already done my first one. I'm going to carry my tail with me here. So that's 1. Okay, so that should be right. Just going to tug this a little bit to kind of smooth it out. Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. That's my 9th one. So on the corner, we're going to put 3 single crochets so that we can turn the corner. So what I'm going to do is snip my blue tail in between the stitches, so that if there is a little nub, it gets it kind of gets hidden. So I put 2 single crochets. Now I'm going to do my 3rd one for that corner stitch. Now before I move on, what I'm going to do is take my regular stitch marker and mark the middle stitch of that set of 3. And that will be my new corner when I come around. So I also did 7 rows, so I should have 7 places to make a stitch here. So there's not an easy guide there, so you just have to kind of guess where the end of the row is and try to place a stitch as best you can. Let's see, where am I at? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then the 7th one, I'm just gonna get it right in there. Okay, so that's 7 across. All right, now we're going to chain 1 and turn our work. And now we're going to go back, and this time our sides, this being one side, are going to increase by 1 because of the corner. So that's why that stitch marker is there, so that I know that I crochet 1 single crochet in each stitch up to that stitch marker, and that's my new corner. So I'm going to place 3 single crochets in that stitch, which I'm at right now. So I'm going to take my stitch marker out and put in 3 single crochets. Make sure you get under the full top of the stitch. Okay, and now I'm going to put my stitch marker back in, repositioning it to that middle stitch for the next time when I come around. Now you're going to continue with one stitch, one single crochet per each stitch, but I wanted to show you how I'm going to add in the red without fastening off the white. I'm going to carry the white along as I move along the rows. So I'm going to go all the way to my last stitch, but I'm not going to quite complete the single crochet. So I'm going to insert my hook and pull up a loop, and then I'm going to stop. I'm going to grab my red, and then of course create your tail. Okay, sorry about that. My dog started barking, so I'm going to try to pick up where we left off. So I pulled up a loop on my white, and I have my red. I'm ready to complete this single crochet with the red yarn. So you're going to leave a tail, and then you're just going to pull it through those 2 loops, and that completes the single crochet. Then you're going to chain 1 and turn your work. And then I just like to get 1 single crochet in there just to kind of lock it in place, and then I tighten up those tails a little bit so that it doesn't get too messy. So now I still kept my working yarn attached, my white working yarn, sorry. And I have a red tail, a white tail, and then both red and white are attached to the skein. So we're going to continue like we did with the white, 1 single crochet in each stitch until we get to that corner, which is marked, and we're going to put 3 in there, 3 stitches in the middle, the corner. Sorry, I'm trying to watch my dog and talk to you at the same time. All right, so now I'm at my middle stitch of that set of 3, and I'm going to put 3 single crochets into this stitch. Make sure you're getting under both loops of that stitch, the top of the stitch. And now I'm going to reposition my stitch marker to the new center because it actually shifted. And now I'm going to continue with 1 stitch, 1 single crochet per stitch. After I get this knot out, I don't know how that happened. It's got all twisted on me. Okay, so we're going to continue the red just as we did the white, going all the way to the end. And then chaining 1 and turning. I don't like the way that looks. There we go. Wanted to show you how I continue with the white because I carry it up. I don't fasten it off after each stripe. Some of you may know how to do that already, which is fantastic. Okay, so I'm at my corner stitch. So I'm going to put 3 single crochets and then place my stitch marker back on that second stitch of those 3. So you're going to go all the way to the end, but we're not going to complete the last single crochet because we're going to complete it with the white. Okay, so I stopped right where I stopped before with the white. So I just pulled up the loop, and now remember we have our two tails, the red and the white, but we also have our working yarn still attached. So we're going to take this red, the working yarn that's the red, and we're just going to move it to the side, and we're going to grab our white yarn. And now if you just flip your hands this way, we're just going to carry it up. But the trick to this is to not pull too tight so that it doesn't curl your work. And I just kind of tighten the red a little bit. So that completes that stitch. So now we're going to chain one and rotate our work. And this will get hidden when we do our border. So we're going to continue with the stripes the same way we've been doing it. Remember, your corner stitch gets 3. And I do 2 sets of the red stripes and then 3 sets of the white. So go ahead and continue to work at your pace. Pause the video or stop it. And we're going to do one more red stripe. And that, remember, is 2 rows because we chain one in turn. And then at the end of the white, I apologize. We're doing the white, we're doing this. You're gonna do one more red, and at the end of the red, go ahead and stop and don't fasten off or anything. Just pause the video and we'll connect at that point. Okay, as I was listening to the playback, I realized in the video I had mentioned that we do 3 stripes of white, but we don't. As I was saying it, I was looking and I was counting the border as a stripe, but that was incorrect. So it's just the blue box or the blue rectangle and then 2 stripes of each. So at this point now we're getting ready to start our border. So I stopped my red right after I pulled up the loop before I end or complete that single crochet. I'm going to take my red, move it to the side. All right, I'm sorry about that. I was trying something and I didn't really care for it. So I'm going to go ahead and complete the single crochet with the red. So I'm going to complete that, and then I'm going to chain one to fasten it off so I can knot it. I really wanted to make sure that that was knotted. So let's just kind of recap where we're at. So we have the red tail that we just finished. We have, we're still attached working yarn with the white. We have 2 working tails, red and white, from when we brought them onto the piece. And then we have our blue ending tail from when we finished our rectangle. So at this point, I'm going to sew these 2 because they're the only ones that don't have any secured point. So I'm just going to pull it just before it starts to pull on the rows so I can get as close to a stitch as possible. Okay, so now that's knotted. Everything is secured at this point. So what I'm going to do now is just kind of smooth this out, just kind of see where I'm at. So I still have my stitch marker in the corner of my red for when I come around on my border. I know which is that stitch that gets the 3 singles. So now I'm going to start my border. So I am just going to insert my hook underneath this, and make sure you're on the right side because we want the front of our single crochet showing at this point for the border. So I'm just going to find a place where I can insert my hook underneath where I carried the yarn up, the red and the white. So let me just try to find a spot. And I'm going to pull the white yarn, the working white yarn through. Okay. And I'm just going to slip stitch to get it in there, and now I'm going to start single crocheting. And with this, I want to remind you that we will have 4 corners. So when you get to the corners, make sure you're still doing the 3 single crochets. So that's my corner stitch. So that's the first single crochet. So I'm going to work my red tail in as I go along this red bottom, but I did not grab both loops. There we go. Okay, so now this is the second, and this is the third single crochet. Okay, so that's one corner done. And now I'm just going to follow the stitches, 1 single crochet in the white here along this bottom red stripe. I'm just going to yank that, smooth it out a little bit. I'm going to keep carrying it over just to, the longer it stays on the piece, the less likely it is to come out. So I'm going to keep going as far as I can. Okay, it's getting pretty close to the end. So I'm just going to yank on it a little bit, and I'm holding this corner to make sure I don't accidentally over pull and then cinch it. And now I'm going to try to get in as close as I can. Snip off that red. And I'm going to continue going down to that stitch marker because that tells me that I'm at my next corner. And I'm going to put 3 single crochets. Now, if you're going to do a second round for your border of a different type of stitch, you may want to mark that middle stitch again. I'm not. I'm going to stop after just this simple single crochet, but you may want to put a crab stitch or something else on top of it, or maybe just do 2 rounds of single crochet and make it an extra thick white border. So you may want to mark that stitch just to make it easier for you when you come around. Okay, so I'm coming to my last stitch. So remember, this is a corner, so it will be 3 single crochets. And now this is what I feel is the hardest part, because you're working on the side of the stitches, so there's not a clear indication of where to place your single crochets because you don't have the top of the stitches like you do over here in the blue. So you know you have 2, 4, 6, 8 rows, because remember each stripe is 2 rows. So you need to find 8 spaces. So if you look at it, if I have 1 here from the corner, and I can stick 1 in right here, and then 1 on this white, 1 on this white, 1 on the red, here's one, another one on the red. So you can oh, I already did that one. See, I'm talking and I'm not paying attention. So you can find your 8 stitches. It's a little difficult, and sometimes it takes time to recognize where, but the great thing about this particular pattern is if you're a stitch off or on or a little extra, it's not going to hurt the overall pattern. So now that I'm at the white, or I'm sorry, the blue, I can just follow the tops of these stitches right to the corner, and that corner I have the tail from when I completed the blue rectangle, and that's my stitch marker telling me that it's the top left corner. So here's my last stitch for this row or this side. So I'm going to take my tail and kind of hide it to the side here because I want to try to weave that in as I go through. So remember, this is a corner, so we're going to put in 3 single crochets, and I'm going to work right over that tail. So again, on this side now, we're working with stitches where we don't have a clear place to put our hook. So I made 7 rows, so I need to make 7 stitches. And then here, when I get down to this part, my white from the row is starting here, so I need to come up with 2 4 stitches here. And then I'm going to try to cover these tails a little bit too. So I'm going to take my blue and try to work that in. Sometimes it's a little hard to hold all these different things together. I mean, I don't think I'm an expert crocheter by any means, but I think I do a fairly decent job, and I struggle. So if you're a beginner, I can imagine how it could be for you. It's hard to figure out how to hold it and where to place your hook sometimes. Okay. I'm sorry if I come off camera a little bit. It's hard to... before I do that last stitch in the blue, I want to trim my blue tail, but I want to make sure it's smooth. See, there was a little give there. So I want to pull that closed, or pull it smooth. Trim it as close as I can. And then do the last stitch in the blue. Okay, so now I'm at that point where I'm back on the stripes. So I have my red and white tail that I want to work in, but I need to find where to put 4 single crochets. And so this is that carry, when we carried the white. So when I do my single crochets, I want to make sure I pull that into the stitch so that it's hidden. Okay, so make sure you're putting your hook in and you're pulling that back up into the border. Okay, stick those in the back there. Okay, so now I don't have really any place to put another stitch before I come to where I began. So I'm going to slip stitch. And then what I like to do, since this is kind of hanging out in the middle, and if I just stop right here, I will see a little bump. I mean, it's minimal, but I'll know it's there. So I like to slip stitch to the corner, but actually I want to tighten that loop a little bit. There. So I'm going to slip stitch all the way to the corner to reduce that bump, and then I'm going to fasten off. So I like to go, it helps hide it just a little bit. I mean, when you're doing this as a gift, or if you're attempting to sell it, you want to try to hide as many little things like that as possible. Okay, so now I can just See, it looks a lot cleaner that way. In my opinion, it does. So now all I have to do in order for this to be finished is sew in that tail that I just created, and then these two I can just sneak them right in here, and then the white tail I can just sneak right in here, and we're all done. So this is the completed coaster or square, however you want to call it. And it should match up, and it does. I mean, it's not going to be exactly the same, but it's very, very similar. I mean, there might be a little divot there. So that's actually, I have 3 of them now because I've had to make this video a few times. And each time I've had to make a new square. So I now have 3. So I'll probably make one more so I have a set of 4. But that's the square. So thanks for watching, and please add any comments. I apologize if I was off camera a little bit tonight. This was a little crazy evening to be making a video. Please like and subscribe, and if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. Thanks so much for watching. See you again soon.